Morning, everyone. Thank you for your presence. I'm flying solo today because our Vice Chair, Pete Aguilar, of course, is a member of the January 6th Select Committee on the insurrection and will be participating throughout the day on this incredibly important hearing. We had an abbreviated caucus meeting today out of respect for the hearing that has just begun on January 6th, that fateful day in America that will forever live in infamy. The January 6th insurrection was a violent assault that was incited by the former disgraced, twice impeached President of the United States of America. It was an attack on the Capitol, the Congress, the Constitution, and the country. January 6th insurrection was not a normal tourist day. It was not a peaceful protest. It was not a love fest. It was a Trump-inspired riot designed to take down the United States government. And so the January 6th Select Committee will undertake a serious, solemn, sober, and substantive investigation to present the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as it relates to what happened on January 6th, why it happened, and most importantly, how do we prevent a violent insurrection and attack on the Capitol from ever happening again. It's personal for members because members were the targets as part of this insurrection. But we're going to undertake this in a serious way, in a bipartisan way, and I commend Congresswoman Liz Cheney, Congressman Adam Kinzinger for being patriots and putting the Constitution over partisan political interests. We also heard today from the chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, Peter DeFazio, providing us with an update from his vantage point as to where things stand. We, of course, through Peter DeFazio's leadership, have advanced an incredibly important piece of legislation designed to help modernize our transportation and infrastructure here in this country, do it in a green and a resilient and a sustainable way. We look forward to seeing what comes out of the United States Senate with respect to the bipartisan infrastructure agreement that is still being negotiated. We're committed to moving an infrastructure package in a bipartisan way, and we're also committed to doing what is necessary to build back better, to make life better for everyday Americans who have been struggling through the pandemic and was struggling prior to the pandemic, which is why President Biden has correctly indicated that we're not going to go back to normal, that we are going to build back better. We're going to make sure that we lift up the middle class in America and all who aspire to be part of it so that we can keep the promise of America, which is the opportunity for every single person in every single zip code to be able to succeed. Questions?
Thank you, Chairman Jeffries. I was wondering, why do you think Republicans keep blaming Speaker Pelosi for the security failures on January 6th when Leader McConnell also makes an appointment to the Capitol Police Board with the Senate Sergeant at Arms? Why are they just focusing on her?
Well, the fact that Kevin McCarthy continues to blame Speaker Pelosi is just such a sick and cynical act of diversion and distraction. We know that the person primarily responsible for the insurrection that occurred on January 6th is the former twice impeached President of the United States, Donald Trump, who incited that riot, urged people to march on the Capitol, whipped them up by perpetrating the big lie, which, by the way, he still hasn't walked away from. And the notion that Speaker Pelosi is concerned about what a few crackpots might have endeavored to contribute to the seriousness of the inquiry because she's concerned about what it may reveal about herself is ludicrous. It makes no sense. Those rioters, those protesters, were there in part to assassinate Nancy Pelosi. What does Kevin McCarthy not get about that? And so, you know, it's a diversion, it's a distraction. They don't want to talk about what happened on January 6th, but America saw what happened on January 6th, and we're going to get to the bottom of the facts as it relates to everything that unfolded that day, unfolded prior to January 6th, and those who continue to perpetrate the big lie as well, which is bad for our democracy. Heather.
Hello. So on the fifth negotiations, the White House has told Democrats privately they don't want to go to conference. I know some of your members feel very strongly about that. But it seems like if they come to an agreement over on the Senate side, you guys are just going to have to accept and pass whatever they pull together over here. Are you prepared to do that, and are you okay with that?
Well, first of all, let's see what is actually negotiated in terms of the bipartisan agreement. Nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon in both the House and in the Senate. So it's impossible for us to take a position until we have some clarity as it relates to what that bipartisan group of senators intend to do in terms of investing in our crumbling infrastructure. And it is crumbling. And we do need to invest in our bridges, our roads, our tunnels, our airports, our mass transit system. I think we need to do it in a green and a sustainable and a resilient way. I think we need to invest in access to broadband so that there's universal access in this country, in the inner city, in rural America, in small town America, in Appalachia. I think we need to invest in the creation and preservation of affordable housing. And we've got some ideas as to how to do that in the House. We'll see what comes out of the Senate. And so we anxiously await the results of the bipartisan negotiations. But I think our posture is always on any piece of legislation that nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon. I'll go to this side? No? Okay. Sir?
Chairman Jeffries, what do you expect to hear from Capitol Police officers and from people in the beginning of the committee hearings today, and what are your expectations for how Democrats can work with Republicans with the January 6th hearing?
Well, it's very important to begin with the police officers who are on the front lines defending our democracy at great risk to themselves in terms of loss of life and serious bodily injury. And by the way, more than 140 police officers were seriously injured on January 6th, fighting to defend us. And I think it was important to respect that struggle and that sacrifice by hearing from them first. And I expect the testimony is going to be powerful and personal and gripping for the American people. And I think for many members who will live through that day once again as the police officers tell the story of January 6th.
Mr. Chairman, do you have any concerns that the way that Republicans are, making accusations that this committee's work is going to be politicized? Do you have any worries that that's going to affect the way that the American people view it? And do you think the Speaker will add any more Republicans?
Well, take the second part of your question first. I do think that the Speaker promised that there would be a bipartisan committee, and she's delivered on the fact that there is a bipartisan committee. That is going to undertake its work in a nonpartisan fashion, which is what is appropriate, because the January 6th insurrection was an attack on Democrats alone or Republicans alone. They wanted to assassinate Nancy Pelosi and hang Mike Pence. It was an attack on the entire Capitol, the Constitution, the Congress, and the country. That's why it's important that the committee proceed in a thoughtful and solemn and sober way, and that's what I expect to see, led by Chairman Benny Thompson and Ranking Member Liz Cheney.
Since the Senate is so behind schedule, is the House going to depart as scheduled for its August recess? And do you envision you guys needing to come back in August to do the budget resolution, or can that wait until you guys are back in September?
Well, I think we're planning to proceed throughout the week, take care of the appropriations bills that are going to be before the House over the next few days, and we'll see what comes out of the Senate. The schedule will ultimately be determined by Speaker Pelosi and Majority Leader Hoyer. Majority Leader Hoyer this morning indicated that basically things remain fluid. The most important fact, however, that will determine the schedule is that we remain committed to building back better, to making sure the American Jobs Plan and the American Families Plan put forth by President Joe Biden get over the finish line sooner rather than later, because everyday Americans need the help. This is a deadly pandemic that was both a public health crisis and an economic crisis, and there's a lot of pain and suffering and death that the American people have experienced. President Biden has done a tremendous job over the first 6.5 months or so. 3 million plus jobs have been created. That's a record in the first 200 or so days of any American presidency, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And we're going to be here as long as it takes to get that work done, even if that means extending into the August district work period or coming back at some point next month. Final question?
Back to the committee, what role do you see Representatives Cheney and Kinzinger ultimately playing in this investigation? And do you think that with their names on the report, is that going to be enough for some people who are skeptical that, you know, that this is going to be a bipartisan endeavor and have an air of legitimacy?
Well, you know, it's important for all of us to make a decision as to whether we're going to stand on the side of the rule of law or stand on the side of the big lie. Are we going to stand on the side of the Constitution, or are we going to stand on the side of crackpot conspiracy theories? Are we going to stand on the side of democracy, or are we going to stand on the side of autocracy? And Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger have clearly made the choice that they're going to stand on the side of the rule of law, the Constitution, and democracy. And they should be commended for that. And they're leading by example. And hopefully other Republicans within the Congress will join them. The American people saw what happened on January 6th. They know who incited that insurrection. But just like in the aftermath of Pearl Harbor, an attack on the country, and in the aftermath of September 11th, an attack on the country, there has to be an inquiry that undertakes in a comprehensive fashion an examination of what happened, how do we prevent it from happening again, and tells the full story to the American people. And I'm confident that the Democrats who are on the committee, led by Chairman Thompson, and the Republicans who are on the committee are going to do just that, as great Americans should. Thank you.
But what do you think it says about the Republican Party that faced with such a stark choice, only 2 of their members were willing to join the committee?
Speaks for itself.
What does that
Thank
mean?
you, everyone.
What does that
Thank
mean?
you, everyone.